attack is coming, I must warn the Rangers.
I can totally help.
To be heroes. No legends. Wait, even better.
Does anyone else feel like we should have shot something by now?
Thank you.
If you're acknowledging the biggest problem with your movie, that's probably not a good thing. Howdy folks, got another Bladeslinger vlog for you. So tomorrow we are going to be getting a start on covering the Ratchet & Clank series for the showcase. And because I have the series on the mind, I thought I'd talk about something from the franchise that not a lot of people tend to bring up, for good reason, a lot of people would say. But what I'm referring to here is the Ratchet & Clank movie. When this film came out, it was like, it honestly left almost no impact at all. The marketing was terrible. The box office performance was just awful. It had a budget of $20 million and it didn't even break even. Critics hate it, fans hate it, and it's joined the pantheon of all the horrible video game films that have come out over the years. And I gotta be completely honest, I feel like this film's reputation is a little overblown. I remember watching Ratchet & Clank when it first came out, the film that is, and honestly feeling that all this hate I was hearing towards it was a little unjustified. Now, that's not to say that Ratchet & Clank was a particularly good movie. At best, I would say it's just average. But, compared to some other video game movies I've seen, I feel like there's a lot more to admire here than people give it credit for. So, the film Ratchet & Clank is essentially a cinematic adaptation of the first video game. It centers around Ratchet, who is a mechanic on a backwater planet who has dreams of joining the Galactic Rangers and being an intergalactic hero. Unfortunately, he is constantly turned down from joining the organization due to his unimpressive stature and a lot of marks against him on his record. Unfortunately, the Galactic Rangers are sort of in a bind at the moment because Chairman Drek, with the help of Dr. Nefarious, is currently undertaking a plan to destroy key planets and collect up key chunks of it to build a new super planet. And he's going after the Galactic Rangers to ensure that they don't get in his way. A little robot by the name of Clank discovers this and wants to get it to the Galactic Rangers to warn them of the coming threats. Ratchet agrees to help him out, and the two go and arrive just in time to save the Galactic Rangers just as they are being attacked. For this, Ratchet is inducted into the Galactic Rangers and works alongside his heroes in order to save the galaxy from Chairman Drek and Dr. Nefarious. Okay, so the feedback I get from this movie tends to center around the fact that it's a poor adaptation of the original game. And to be honest, that's not a statement I've always agreed with, primarily because, the original plot of Ratchet & Clank wasn't particularly good. Now, Chairman Drek's plan was certainly original, and he was a great villain, and the game certainly had charm, attitude, and humor, but the plot itself was very poorly written. Ratchet was kind of a dick, the friendship between him and Clank wasn't very well done, and even though they give Chairman Drek his comeuppance at the end of the game, they don't actually stop his plan. They just kind of destroy everything he made, but, the planets that were destroyed were still destroyed. So it was a pretty messy plot, all things considered, and it doesn't really line up with the rest of the series either. So with the movie, what we have here is sort of an attempt to retell the events of the first game while making it more in line with what the series is like today. And in that respect, I think it is strong. They add a lot to the plot from the original game. You actually see where Ratchet was before he started going on adventures with Clank. Captain Quark isn't immediately working for Chairman Drek. It actually needs to be swayed to his side in the movie. He's got other people helping him, and Chairman Drek is trying to work behind the scenes this time because, yeah, the galaxy isn't just going to let some corporate douchebag destroy a bunch of planets to build a new one. So, yeah, the film actually addresses a good chunk of the plot holes that existed in the original Ratchet and Clank. But at the same time, they also bring their new issues to the table. While it is cool that Captain Quark is more or less on the hero side this time, it is a little strange that he even agrees to side with Chairman Drek later in the movie. Like, it's never really explained why he's doing that. Like, yeah, he wants to one-up Ratchet and Clank because they are starting to show him up, but I don't understand why he thinks working with these two is going to help him with that. So, yeah, that's really annoying. And also, I don't think it was a terribly good idea to put Dr. Nefarious in this movie either, because he sort of takes away from Chairman Drek, who is one of the great video game villains, but here he's just relegated to sort of a unknowing sidekick to Dr. Nefarious. But yeah, the plot definitely has its issues, and there are other issues that do exist with this movie too, and we'll touch on those later. But as far as a retelling of the original game goes, I think this is okay, and it did make for a better representation of the original game in the video game adaptation that Insomniac made to go along with this movie. As far as the characters are concerned, it's Ratchet and Clank, and I don't feel like enough people recognize that fact. One of the biggest issues with Ratchet in the original game was that he was kind of a douchebag. He was self-centered. He often did things that would get him and Clank into trouble. Then he would blame Clank for those problems. And yeah, he just wasn't a very likable character. Here, he's more in line with how he is in the modern series. And yeah, it does come across pretty well. He's definitely a character who is underestimated. He does have skills. He is a mechanical genius. He is creative in his thinking. But at the same time, he's also very reckless. He doesn't always think things through. And, that sort of plays into the film's lesson. When Ratchet joins the Galactic Rangers and everything, he becomes fixated on doing these great big heroic acts, but he's not really thinking things through. He's not going in with a plan, and that leads to trouble for him. The lesson that the movie is trying to get across, and it is a lesson I do like, is that you don't need to do these great big acts in order to make a difference. Sometimes a small act can go a long way as well. And as a lifeguard who has 13 years of experience, but only had to activate the EAP on 3 occasions, I get that. It's it might sound like I did a lot in those 13 years, but most of the time I was just sitting and watching the pool. But, I did do something during that time, and I feel like that is a good lesson to teach in Ratchet and Clank. Well, actually, no, that is part of the problem. That is a good lesson, but it isn't one that I think works all that well with Ratchet and Clank. And really, I hate that this film is trying to have a moral lesson per se, because really, I didn't want that. I just wanted to go see a movie with Ratchet and Clank and Captain Quark, have them make a bunch of jokes and engage in a lot of fun action sequences. But weirdly enough, that isn't really what the movie consists of. That there is action in this movie, but it's very brief and not terribly exciting. The film mostly leans into comedy, and unfortunately a lot of kids movie comedy too. There are some jokes in there that are genuinely funny, like when Ratchet is in his audition for the Galactic Rangers, and they start listing off all these crazy things that Ratchet has done to get himself in trouble, and how Ratchet tries to sort of play it off as less than his record says. He's not really doing a very good job, especially considering the last thing they mentioned is that he disrupted the space-time continuum, and his only response to that is, that is a funny story. Like, that's genuinely funny, and there's plenty of lines like that in the movie that do get a chuckle. But most of the time, like, the film isn't really that funny. Like, the scene I especially disliked is the one where Ratchet is trying out all the weapons. Like, it's played completely for laughs. Like, there's never a moment in the movie where Ratchet seems like a competent combatant, which is really weird considering that he's always had this natural physicality, knack for gadgets, and tactics as well. And I feel like there's more they could have done with that too. Like, for example, Captain Quark. He is mostly on the side of good this time. You could have had a character arc for him, like him having this reputation as like this big, powerful warrior. But then when Ratchet starts working with them, he realizes that Captain Quark isn't really up to snuff, and it's really Ratchet who's the skilled fighter here. But Quark still has his place on the team because despite that, he's still a really good planner. Like, his plans in the games, more often than not, were good, even if they all centered around Ratchet. But yeah, they just don't do that in the movie, and like, when Ratchet and Quark come to an understanding, like, it doesn't feel terribly natural. Like, Ratchet is still very much in character, but there is some sloppy writing in there. Clank, he actually doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. Like, he does try to guide Ratchet in a similar manner to how he did in the game, and it does work a little bit better for him because, Ratchet isn't a complete douche this time. But there isn't enough of him and Clank actually working together, I would say. There isn't enough of them together where you really get a strong sense of their relationship, which has really become the backbone of the franchise as a whole. Captain Quark, still a very funny character, very entertaining. And again, I like that he's not a straight villain this time. He's more in line with how he is in the modern games. But again, his character arc just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As for the side characters, Chairman Drek, great villain, terribly represented in the movie, and I hate the voice actor they got for him. Dr. Nefarious, always very funny, always very intimidating, but, also very silly as well. And it is kind of neat to see him before he was turned into a robot. But again, I really wish that it was just Chairman Drek playing the villain, that, they didn't feel the need to rely on Dr. Nefarious. The other characters in the movie, one of the things that disappointed me most about this film was that a lot of the great side characters from Ratchet and Clank don't make appearances. Instead, we got a bunch of new characters to round out the cast. The Galactic Rangers especially are pretty lame, just trigger-happy dude bras, and but weirdly enough, I agree with them. I want more shooting in this movie. There isn't enough shooting in this movie. Like, the most famous thing about Ratchet and Clank is the arsenal, the guns, all that fun stuff, but there just isn't enough of that in this movie. So, yeah, based on what I've said right now, like, did you say that this movie isn't that bad? And yeah, it really isn't that bad. While I am listing a lot of weak aspects in the movie, it's not like they're insultingly bad. Like, if they had done a straight adaptation of the original game, and just had the characters as is and all that stuff, I would definitely have more negative things to say about it. But as is, it's just kind of a bland kids movie. But there are still some things about it that I do admire, chief among them being the animation. I really love that this film goes out of its way to look like the game series. Like, when I heard they were doing a Ratchet and Clank movie, I figured they would try to make it a live action or look like live action or something along those lines, something similar to the Sonic movie. But instead, like, it just looks like a feature-length cutscene, and yeah, I really like that. And it also helps that they got the key voice actors to do it too. You got James Arnold Taylor as Ratchet. You got Clank as his voice actor. Jim Ward is doing Captain Quark, and because of that, it feels like these characters have just jumped from the games into the movies, as they rightfully should, because they are great characters. Now, that's not to say that there aren't any celebrities in the film. Like, they do have people like John Goodman and what have you lending their voice. but they're relegated to the side characters, which is a good thing. That's how you're supposed to do it. You give the key roles to professional voice actors, and then you let the celebrities fill out the rest of the cast. It does work very well, and that kind of goes for the music too. Like, this feels like a Ratchet and Clank movie. The problem is that it's just not a terribly strong Ratchet and Clank movie. Like, I always got the sense that, not a whole lot of effort was put into this film, apart from the animation and everything. It always felt to me like it was more of a direct-to-video movie that they then decided to beef up to a cinematic release at the last minute, which is probably why the marketing for this film was so bad, and why the writing is, weirdly enough, not at the same quality as the video games. But, yeah, for a film that just gets such a hated reaction from fans, I really don't think it's that bad. And every time I watch it, like, I'm able to get through it just fine. As I said, there are still some instances where I do laugh at the film. There are some instances where there is some fun action in there, like the last part of the movie where Ratchet and Quark are fighting Chairman Drek and Dr. Nefarious. That is a fun scene. There is some good elements here, and I feel like they were on the right track with their approach to this. The problem is that they just didn't put the time and effort into it in order to make it as good as it could be. Like, if this film had like a few more goes in the writing room, if you had some writers from Insomniac working with them instead of working on that game that came out based on this, I feel like this really could have been one of the all-time great video game adaptations. But as is, it's just sort of an average movie. Not nearly as bad as other people say it is, and nowhere near as bad as some other video game movies I've seen. Like, if you think this is the worst video game movie of all time, it's probably the only video game adaptation you've ever seen. Like, have you seen any of Uwe Boll's movies? Like, for crying out loud. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank movie, really not that bad, and I would honestly recommend at least one viewing for Ratchet and Clank fans. You'll probably never want to see it again after you watch it, but there is still something to be admired here. There were some good people working on this film. It's just that they needed more good people and more time to make it. So yeah, not a terrible movie. Only recommended to hardcore Ratchet and Clank fans, but something that also should be commended just a little bit for how closely it tries to follow the video game series with its animation, its voice acting, and how it does its plot. But that's going to do it for this vlog, guys. I'll see you next time.